When we visited our addition project a few days later, expert drywaller Bill Ballantyne was hard at work, and he took time to share some of his expertise with us.
This is user-friendly drywall. Now, first of all, ceilings go up, then the walls. And the reason for that is that once you've installed the ceiling and then you apply the walls, you minimize your gaps and need for filling and taping and repairs. So what we'll do is, installing the ceiling here, you measure from the wall that the drywall is going to go up against. And we've already got a couple of sheets up here, so what we'll do is we'll stagger the joints, the butt joints, which is the 4-foot end of the drywall, and we've got 6 feet and 1/4 inches. And conveniently, we've already cut the sheet. Making note, we need to measure the distance if we're using a router to cut out pot lights and electrical outlets and switches and stuff. Measure from the drywall where we're butting the drywall up against. And we've got 32 inches to the center. Now over here, just a scrap piece of drywall I've secured to the wall just as a little ledge to rest the edge of the drywall in. And what this does is gives you, as though somebody else is holding on to the end of the sheet for you, to kind of alleviate the weight of the sheet. When you're first tacking up a sheet, make sure your nails or your screws don't countersink into the paper, which the weight of the drywall could break through and cause it to collapse on you. 32 inches away from the drywall. Make a mark. When we're cutting out any object that's made of metal, you go in the center of the object, get to the outside, and then you go counterclockwise. Now going counterclockwise around an object causes the drill bit of the router to kind of stick to the object that you're cutting out. If you went clockwise, then what would happen is the router would have a tendency to cut away from the object, and then you'd have a disaster and more taping repairs. As well, insert the screws, get the ceiling secured. Now that we're going to put this sheet of drywall up, you're not going to see the studs. So when we frame 16 inches on center, we know that in behind this drywall, that the center of each stud coming from the edge of the drywall should be 16 inches, 1632. And then the same procedure as cutting, I'm just using my finger to hold the tape to the edge of the drywall, my pencil on the edge of the tape, and make some light pencil marks. To get the drywall onto the wall and make sure that we get it nice and tight to the ceiling, we have this apparatus called a lifter, which is simply kind of a shoe that will rock. And it has an end on it that you slide underneath the drywall, and you just use your own body weight to lift the sheet. What we'll do is we'll get the sheet into position, being mindful that the drywall is butting up tight to the side here. Get the lifter underneath the drywall, and I just lean back. And then with the drywall tight, to the other sheet of drywall. That's where you screw to first. Just make sure there's no movement. Now, before we go any further with securing the sheet of drywall, you always got to cut out any electrical boxes, pot lights, or anything that you may have covered over, because if you try to cut it out after you've secured the drywall, that opening is going to break. I measure 16 inches up. There's 16. Just rest the router up against the wall and start. And voila. The paper gets a little burred around there, but you can just push that back in. It's a little dusty, but it makes it very clean. When you have a seam joining pieces of drywall, don't be afraid to use quite a few fasteners. That's just to ensure that you minimize any movement there may be down in the future of the wall and prevent some cracking. Don't fuss or worry about missing the stud in behind the wall. But what you do, instead of banging the screw in, just take it out. This is a tack puller. Just hook the tack puller in behind the head of the screw and pull it out. Now you'll notice that the paper has kind of come out a little bit. And what we want to do to make sure the taper is happy when he's coating these screws is just use the handle of the screwdriver or the tack puller and push it in. And there, now you have a dimple and that'll just fill. If you tried to fill over top of this paper sticking out, that's what's going to happen, is that paper will be sticking above the compound when you go over with a knife to try to coat it, and it's just more of an aggravation than what's necessary. So just take the time to make sure that the surface is clean before you get to the taping stage.